Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. Pakistan has summoned a senior Indian diplomat to register its protest over the ceasefire violations by the Indian forces along the line of control. In a statement, the Foreign Office said unprovoked Indian fighting wounded 3 civilians in Hot Spring and Jandar Road sectors. The office said Indian forces have martyred 18 civilians and wounded another 183 while committing 2,280 ceasefire violations this year. China has begun military drills near the Taiwan Strait as a U.S. envoy, Keith Krach, landed in Taipei for a high-level visit. In a press briefing, China's Defense Ministry spokesperson said the action is necessary due to the current situation in the region. Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko says he has been forced to close the country's western border with Poland and Lithuania. During an address, Lukashenko said the military will be on high alert and the border with Ukraine will be strengthened. Both Poland and Lithuania say the borders are operating as usual with no sign of closures. The global number of COVID-19 cases has crossed 30 million with over 946,000 fatalities. World's second worst hit country, India's caseload has exceeded 5.2 million after a spike of over 96,000 infections in the last 24 hours. 1,174 people have died overnight in India, raising the toll to over 84,000. In Pakistan, 9 people have lost their lives in the last 24 hours, taking the toll to 6,408 with over 304,000 confirmed cases. Those are the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now with the news in detail. Pakistan has summoned a senior Indian diplomat to register its protest over the ceasefire violations by Indian forces along the line of control. In a statement, the Foreign Office said unprovoked Indian fighting wounded 3 civilians in Hot Spring and Jandar Road sectors. It said Indian military regularly targets the civilian population along the LOC with heavy artillery and automatic weapons. The Foreign Office said New Delhi's senseless acts are in clear violation of the 2003 ceasefire understanding. It said India has committed 2,280 ceasefire violations this year, resulting in 18 martyrdoms and 183 civilian injuries. China has begun military drills near the Taiwan Strait as a U.S. envoy, Keith Krach, landed in Taipei for a high-level visit. In a press briefing, China's Defense Ministry spokesperson said the action is necessary due to the current situation in the region. The spokesperson said the maneuver is aimed at protecting national sovereignty and territorial integrity. He said the recent collusion between Washington and Taipei is creating disturbances in the region.
Taiwan is a sacred and inseparable part of China. Taiwan is a purely internal Chinese affair that brooks no foreign interference. Recently, the United States and the Democratic Progressive Party have colluded with each other closely and are frequently causing issues. Whether it is using Taiwan as leverage to curb China or relying on another's power to bully or frighten others, these are just wishful thinking and doomed to fail.
U.S. envoy is due to meet Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen today and will also attend a memorial service for the late President Lee Teng-hui tomorrow. Now, moving on, Russia says securing a long-lasting peace in the Middle East will be impossible without solving the Palestinian problem. In a statement, Russia's foreign ministry stressed the importance of resuming talks between Israel and Palestine without preconditions. It said Israel's normalization deals with Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates are not enough. The statement read, a Palestinian issue must be resolved in accordance with the fundamental principle of two states. The ministry called on the regional and international players to ramp up coordinated efforts to settle the Palestinian problem. It said Russia is ready for joint work within the UN Security Council framework of the Quartet for negotiations on a Middle Eastern settlement. Jordan's Prime Minister Omar Razaz has reiterated his country's firm stance on the Palestinian cause. In a statement, he warned Israel that lasting peace is impossible as long as it continues to act unilaterally. Razaz said a comprehensive peace will not be achieved unless the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people are met. He said Israel's unilateral measures undermine the rights of the Palestinian people to establish their independent state with Jerusalem as its capital. The Prime Minister said Amman is ready to have a unified stance with Arab countries with regard to regional and external challenges. Palestinians have slammed the recent normalization deals Bahrain and the UAE signed with Israel as a betrayal of their cause. Turkey has launched a new anti-terror operation, Yildirim 12, against Kurdistan Workers' Party in the eastern Biltis province. This comes after Turkey's defense ministry said 2 soldiers were martyred in an attack by the PKK in northern Iraq. In a statement, Turkey's Interior Ministry said over 700 security personnel will participate in the operation. It said Ankara will eliminate all PKK terrorists in the country and neutralize others hiding in the region. Turkey said the military has neutralized 71 terrorists and destroyed 141 hiding spots and storages during Yildirim operations so far. Earlier last week, Ankara launched Operation Yildirim 11 to tackle the PKK terrorists in the eastern Sirte province. In Yemen, the Saudi-led military coalition says it destroyed a drone launched by the Houthis towards the kingdom. Earlier, a Houthi spokesman said a drone had made a strike on a military target at Aba Airport in southern Saudi Arabia. Saudi state media quoted the coalition as saying the drone was launched at civilian targets in the southern region of Khamis Mushait. The airport near the border has been a regular target for Houthi drones and missiles in the last 2 years. This comes as the UN is mediating a process to get Yemen's government and the Houthis to reach an agreement to end the war. Delegations from the warring parties are due to meet in Switzerland this week for talks on a UN-backed prisoner exchange deal. The US says it hopes to move forward with naming Qatar as a major non-NATO ally. In a news conference, senior US official Timothy Landerking said the ally status provides foreign nations with benefits in defense, trade and security. Landerking said becoming a major non-NATO ally gives a country preferential access to US military equipment and technology. He said prioritized cooperation on training are some of the benefits of becoming a non-NATO ally. Currently, 17 countries have this status, including the Gulf Arab states, Kuwait and Bahrain. Qatar already hosts the largest US military facility in the Middle East. Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko says he has been forced to close the country's western border with Poland and Lithuania. During an address, Lukashenko said the military will be on high alert and the border with Ukraine will be strengthened. Lukashenko reiterated the August election was legal. The president urged neighboring countries to stop what he called crazy politics, as he doesn't want his country to be at war.
Арсенале
We are forced to withdraw the troops from the streets, put half of the army on standby, and close the state border from the west, primarily with Lithuania and Poland. We are forced to strengthen the state border, unfortunately, with our fraternal Ukraine.
Welcome back. Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny's team says a proper investigation into his poisoning will show Russia's involvement in the case. Laboratories in Germany, France and Sweden have established that Navalny was poisoned by Novichok nerve agent, a poison developed by Russian military. Navalny's team member George Alburov said the new establishment suggests Navalny was poisoned at his hotel room in Tomsk. He said a true investigation will reveal that the Kremlin, President Vladimir Putin and the security forces are all behind Navalny's poisoning.
We continue to demand a serious and genuine investigation, and we know where the results will lead. These results will show that the Kremlin, Putin, and the FSB that organized it all are behind Alexei's poisoning. That's why we don't see any investigation, because they can't investigate themselves.
The Kremlin has denied all the allegations, saying neither Putin nor the security forces were involved. And now moving on, the global number of COVID-19 cases has crossed 30 million with nearly 945,000 fatalities. World's second worst hit country, India's caseload has exceeded 5.2 million after a spike of over 96,000 infections in the last 24 hours. 1,174 people have died overnight in India, raising the toll to over 84,000. More in this report.
The coronavirus pandemic has the world in a chaos as governments struggle to contain the viral disease. The World Health Organization says 1 in 7 cases reported to the body is a health worker, and in some countries that figure rises to 1 in 3. Canada's largest province, Ontario, will fine people who hold social gatherings in defiance of new limits amid a spike in cases in the cities of Toronto and Ottawa. While U.S. manufacturers are sharply increasing production of cheap, fast, but less accurate COVID-19 tests.
We're making progress, and I think it's the right approach. Let's have a rapid test so we can do more testing and do it more quickly. But let's make sure that we manage those false positives and false negatives and get people the most accurate information as quickly as possible. So we're going to need a little more data on that.
Leaders of Europe's coronavirus-stricken travel and tourism industries have appealed to the European Union's chief executive to press governments to end quarantine requirements and instead embrace coordinated restrictions and testing. Greece reported 135 cases of coronavirus among migrants and refugees made homeless by a fire at large refugee camp on the island of Lesbos. Spain's growing number of cases across the country is worrying authorities as Madrid accounts for around 1/3 of active coronavirus infections in the country.
We all know what needs to be done. We recognize the difficult and probably the most complex thing is to choose the moment when decisions are made. But as I said before, in the specific case of Madrid, we understand that measures must be taken and we will be supporting it as a ministry, as we are doing, providing all the technical support and resources that are needed.
New Zealand reported no new cases for the first time in more than 5 weeks as hopes rise that an outbreak discovered in Auckland last month has been stamped out. Australia's coronavirus hotspot of Victoria reported its biggest daily rise in infections in more than a week as the state began relaxing lockdown restrictions. Meanwhile, mainland China reported 32 new COVID-19 cases, all imported, marking the highest daily increase in more than a month.
In Pakistan, 9 people have died from COVID-19 in the last 24 hours. The health ministry says the country's death toll has reached 6,408. The ministry said the number of overnight cases increased to 752 in the country. It said there are 6,295 active infections, while the total confirmed cases have crossed 304,000 mark. The ministry said over 291,000 people have recovered so far. National Command Operations Center said it has closed 13 educational institutions across the country over non-compliance of COVID-19 health guidelines. In the U.S., Storm Sally has caused heavy rain and flooding in Carolinas and Georgia as it continues north from the Gulf Coast. The storm has already battered Florida and Alabama, with rain turning roads into rivers and leaving homes submerged. Pensacola in Florida experienced up to 5 feet of flooding, which resulted in damaged roads and bridges. Officials say one person was killed when another remains missing in southwest Alabama. They say over 500,000 homes and businesses are without power. The National Hurricane Center says Sally has now weakened to a post-tropical cyclone, but tornadoes are still possible. In Argentina, measures to halt the spread of the coronavirus pandemic have escalated unemployment and a price hike. The hiatus has dragged down many people into poverty. They are forced to live in makeshift camps. Look more into the plight of these people in this report.
Argentina's economy is in recession for the third year in a row. The country is headed for a steep 12% contraction this year due to the impact of the pandemic. The economic stagnation has pushed up poverty levels, unemployment, pushing more people out of their homes. According to official data, 3.6 million families in the country have been impacted by homelessness.
I was no longer able to pay rent. I work informally. I'm a painter, and because of the pandemic, I was left without work. I couldn't pay my rent anymore, and I was left out on the street. I even sold my things to pay rent. I sold my furniture, the TV, and things.
The makeshift shacks are made of sheet metal, plastic, wood, and cardboard. Thousands of families have settled in the field as they have no place to go elsewhere.
We need a permanent home for my family, for my baby. One day I have work, the other day I don't. I don't have a way to pay rent. I don't even have enough for me to eat.
The residents of Shantytown are in a miserable plight. According to statistics, almost 400,000 people lost their work during the pandemic. In Guernica, officials are seeking to evict families from this patch of land by the end of September.
Lows at the highs of the business world. Now stocks in Asia are trading mostly higher as Chinese yuan holdings record gains against the dollar. JP Morgan says yuan holdings are gaining strength against the dollar, not observed in recent months, and will continue to gain ground. Mainland Chinese stocks are leading the gains as Shanghai Composite gains over 0.5%. The Shenzhen component has advanced by close to 0.5%, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index gains by over 0.25%. In Japan, the Nikkei 225 gained fractionally higher. South Korea's Kospi also gained marginally. And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.